All right, good afternoon or morning or whatever time you're watching this, AP Research. Welcome to the Combrinck Takeover. So these videos are going to hopefully help keep you on task with your academic paper and your POD when we get there to make sure that we are finishing strong all the hard work you guys have gotten started in the year. So I'm going to start with the very basics. I'm going to put a little PowerPoint together. We're going to walk through it together. Some checklists, some things you're going to work on to make sure you're staying on task or revising things that need to be revised. So without further ado, we will start with our research question. Okay, so number one research question is the biggest thing for your paper. You need to make sure that you have a valid research question. So you should have all of the following. So while we're going through this, there's going to be an assignment on Schoology for you to just checklist off that you have all these things. If you don't have them, now is the time to fix them. It's still late in the game, so it's not going to be the easiest thing to do. But at the very least, you will have your work valid by the time of submission. So it's going to be a lot of hard work for the next 2 months, but you will at least have something to submit if you catch it now. If we catch it later, it's going to be too difficult to fix. So first and foremost, we have to have clarity and focus. So number one, your research question should be clear and it should be specific. It should not be all over the place. It should not be vague. It should be very specific. If it sounds like what you did for AP Seminar, that's too vague. You need to get much more specific in AP Research. And it needs to focus on a singular, well-defined issue or problem. It should not be hundreds of problems, tens of problems, fives of problems. It should be one singular problem or issue because you do have to show research for it and you can't do that with multiple things. Two, it needs to be relevant. So is it relevant to what you're trying to study? Is it relevant to the area you want to look at? Making sure that it fits in there. And does it have a significant gap or existing research? So remember, in AP Research, it's no longer something someone's already asked before. It has to be unique. It has to be new. You guys are capital R researchers now, meaning you can't just use things that have already been researched like you did in AP Seminar. It has to be new and it has to have a gap. So whether that's the population you're studying, whether that's the location you're in, it needs to have a gap. If their study can be found somewhere online, it's not unique enough and you need to revise it to make it unique. Is it feasible? Can you go out there and can you actually ask the questions? Do you have the resources to go gather the information? Is it in a place where you can, is it a group of people rather that you can talk to so you can interview them or send them surveys? Or is it somewhere you can go and get the information or someone you can ask for the information? If you can't do those things, it's not feasible for you to find an answer. We're not working in hypotheticals with AP Research. We're going to try and find answers. So you need to have access to the ways to find those answers. So it has to be feasible. Is it original? Again, it can't be studied before. Originality is very important in AP Research. You have to make sure it is a gap in the research, something that's not been done before. And does it offer a new perspective or approach on the topic? So something that somebody has not done or thought of before. It can be very similar to something someone has done, but you look at it in a new way, and that's acceptable. But it has to have some uniqueness to it. Complexity. Is it complex enough that you can give an in-depth analysis on the research? You got to write 5,000 words. That's a lot of words to write. And if you don't have a complex enough question, you can't do it. It's going to be like, oh, I have 2,000 words. Can that be done? It shouldn't be. If it's 2,000 words, you're not completing the rows in the rubric. And so it's going to be bad research. So make sure that your question is complex enough that you can give it a real in-depth analysis. And it should not be a yes or no. So your yes or no could be, do you prove the hypothesis or not? But the hypothesis is more complex than a yes or no question. So it should not be yes or no questions. They should be somewhat not open-ended questions, but they should have nuance so that it requires complexity to answer them. Can you answer this ethically? Remember, if you've covered ethics before, you should know that we can't go out and harm people to get an answer, right? If I prick someone's finger every time I study, is that going to help them remember for the day of the test? Well, we can't ethically do that because we vow to not do harm onto anybody in research. So even if they sign a waiver, we're not allowed to give harm onto them. And hopefully you've covered why we don't do that, because there have been many studies in the past that did not follow those policies and human rights issues ensued. And then have you also made sure that you can ethically answer your questions? So Are you going to stir up mental health problems? Are you going to create mental health problems with your questions in your survey? Yes, that is the detail you need to get in to see that you're ethically considering your research. Is it researchable? Do you have access to be able to go out there and either obtain studies that have already been done, and again, look at the data in a new way, not take someone's study and just restate it, but take their data, reinterpret it, and look at it? So that's secondary research. Or can you go out there and ask the questions and get the research yourself, which is primary? And is there a clear method of approach? Can you figure out how to get the answers? If you can't figure out how to answer the question or where to even go, then don't ask that question, because you're going to have to actually do the research. Hopefully you're already at that stage and you're researching it. But if you're not, now's the time to fix it, because spring break is approaching, and that's a good time for you to go out and do some really hard work on your deserved rest. But if you waited to this long, then you don't deserve the rest anymore. And last but not least, you got to be interested in the topic area. By now, you should have been looking at this research question for many months, and you still have a couple months still to look at it. And it's going to be what you talk about for 15 to 20 minutes in a presentation, which means you'll have to rehearse that. So you're going to talk about it for hours, and you're going to have to write a 5,000 word essay. So it's going to be a lot of brain space. Hopefully it's something you're interested in. And is it going to engage an audience or contribute to the academic community? Is it something that's worth us researching? It has to have worth. It can't just be, well, this looks fun and that's kind of funny and that'll make me snicker. No, no, no. It has to have a legitimate contribution. And it doesn't have to be like profound and change the world, but it has to have a contribution that is worth looking at in the research community. So this is our first video. We'll keep going through to make sure we have the different steps of the research paper, but this is step one. If the research question is not good, everything that comes after is going to be like an unsturdy foundation, and it's just going to collapse eventually. So start with the research question, complete your checklists, and we will touch base on the next assignment. See you all in the virtual world. Where's the record button? Bye.